I love Yu-Gi-Oh! I'm someone that grew up just completely entranced by the game, the anime, the fact that Yugi's hair eventually started looking normal to me, all of it. Eventually though, I stopped actively collecting/playing the card game, mainly because my smooth monkey brain just couldn't keep up with the sheer speed of things. But even now I still enjoy keeping an eye on the new cards that get released. And thanks to advances in modern technology, I can just hop onto my computer to duel anyone for free, no USB sticks required. Forgot about those things, didn't you? Yes, for those that might not be older than Pegasus, this is a rough 24 years old. Back in the day, if you wanted to duel against people across the globe, you had to buy these little USB sticks from Walmart. They'd charge your duel account with a set number of duel points that you would then spend to duel somebody, and you could eventually unlock new cards as you played. Back then, this blew my aforementioned smooth monkey brain, but that's not what I want to talk about here today. Instead, I want to talk about a different game from around the same time that those USB sticks existed, that being Capsule Monster Coliseum. If that earlier piece of ancient lore didn't tip you off, the early days of Yu-Gi-Oh! Video games were just a lawless land. Back when the anime was exploding in popularity and the card game itself was still shaking off the completely insane make-it-up-as-you-go rules of Duelist Kingdom.
You forgot about my mystical elf. She's been chanting a spell since I put her on the field. It allows the mystical elf to transfer her own attack power to any other monster I choose.
Konami was throwing anything they could at the wall to see what else might stick. Dungeon Dice Monsters tried its hand at being a luck-heavy, pseudo-dungeon-crawling board game. Duelist of the Roses had a gimmick where you would choose a single monster as your deck leader before fighting your opponent in a top-down battlefield, and Forbidden Memories made history as the first video game to feature real, actual torture for its players. It's worth noting that most of the things I just listed off came, in some way, shape, or form, from the original Yu-Gi-Oh! Manga. Kazuki Takahashi, the creator of Yu-Gi-Oh!, had a real knack for coming up with fun game ideas that people wanted to see fleshed out, and Capsule Monsters was no exception. Being based on traditional chess, the draw of Capsule Monsters was that you could build your army of pieces from a huge list of monsters that would each move and fight differently from each other. It was honestly a super cool idea, and the fact that there was a physical, collectible figure game for a short spell shows that Konami clearly felt the same way. I mean, heck, there was even a filler arc for Capsule Monsters in the middle of the anime, which is how I heard about it as a kid in the first place. So when the video game finally came out, I was super excited to play it, since finding the real-life board game at that point was pretty much impossible. After scrounging together the little money that I had saved up, I made my way over to Blockbuster, as if the USB stick thing didn't already peg me as one of the ancient ones, and I rented it for all the time I was allowed to. And I actually really liked it. I mean, it sure isn't perfect, and there's definitely some problems that I think mainly just come from it being a product of its time, but I really do feel like there's some real potential here that could be expounded on if the stars ever align and we get more of it in the modern day. I mean, that's not ever gonna happen, let's be real, but fan mods are always a thing, right? But what exactly is this game about anyway? And why the heck is Yugi playing chess with people instead of tossing cards at them?
What's the story you wish for?
To tell you the truth, there's really not a lot going on with the story here. Yugi and company have all been invited to a mysterious island to participate in a tournament to win the coveted title King of Capsule Monsters. Yugi, not realizing that his King of Games title kind of already makes him King of Capsule Monsters by default, is more than eager to take part, as are all of his friends and enemies. On said island, you'll be going up against some of the mainstays from both Duelist Kingdom and Battle City. Joey, Kaiba, Bakura, Merrick, even Tristan and Taya throw their hats in the ring this time around. Granted, they still suck, but it's cool that they're included. It is kinda weird though that people like Yami Merrick decide to join in, cause there really aren't any high stakes involved in this tournament. Nobody's souls are on the line, the fate of the world's not hanging in the balance for once, and none of the Millennium Item holders ever seem to invoke a Shadow game. For all intents and purposes, they really do just seem to be here to play chess. I guess the potential to beat Yugi in literally any competition is just too good to pass up. And you know, saying that out loud, that is 100% why Kaiba entered, isn't it? So, like I said before, Capsule Monster Coliseum is essentially just a Yu-Gi-Oh! Flavored chess game. You and your opponent will both have a king piece that you're trying to destroy by attacking with your monster pieces. If you do that, or if you destroy all of your opponent's monsters, you win the match. Before combat starts though, you choose your pieces for a single battle from your overall collection, and the lineup of possible monsters is just classic early days Yu-Gi-Oh! Honestly, I'm always a big fan of how the roster in these older games gives otherwise forgotten monsters a chance to shine. Cause be real with me here, when's the last time you ever thought about Shovel Crusher? When choosing your pieces though, each one has both a movement range and an attacking range. Some monsters are super mobile in exchange for being made of wet tissue paper, and some monsters hit like a truck but need to slowly meander their way across the entire board before doing anything. Another cool thing that a lot of these early Yu-Gi-Oh games used to have was the battle animations. A lot of times I'll just turn this on to see what a monster might look like when it's fully modeled, but you'll usually be turning this off right away because it eats up so much of your time. Furthermore, each of the pieces will have its own element, and as you can probably guess, fighting a monster with an elemental advantage gives you a power boost. It's overall pretty traditional fare with this. Fire is weak to water, wood is weak to fire, earth is weak to dark, light is weak to thunder? What? Okay, maybe it's a bit more difficult to remember than expected, but luckily Yugi's grandpa's there to ease you into things by showing you the type matchups, so it shouldn't be too far from the— What? Why? Why would you format it like this?
Well, the rest is up to you. I understand.
Finally though, sometimes monsters can also get special abilities, which is always the part that I thought had the most potential in this game. Most monsters won't have their abilities from the get-go, and will need to instead be powered up slowly over time to unlock them, but they can be game changers if you use them correctly. As an example, the Karibo piece can eventually get the ability to put a shield over one of your units that'll take a single attack for them, and the Needleball piece can get the ability to deal some minor damage to every nearby unit at once. Something that always bothered me though was that not a lot of monsters actually wind up getting anything. Or rather, I'd say about a third of the roster does get abilities, it's just that the bulk of them wind up being simple stat buffs. Those can definitely be powerful, don't get me wrong, it's just that they don't feel that fun to use.
Ooh.
At least for me anyway. I know that's really just a personal issue, but I think it'd be really cool if more monsters had more unique powers. Like, here's what I mean. Jigen Bakudan is a piece that can blow itself up to deal big damage to its surroundings, but its low HP means that getting it into any meaningful position is pretty hard. So imagine if you could use another monster's ability to milkman it to your opponent's backline.
I am the milkman. My milk is delicious. Special delivery today.
Really, I think that's what this game is missing overall, more movement options. Give us the ability to warp more pieces across the board for a surprise attack, or pull a page from the manga and let some monsters do a rush attack in a straight line. The game itself is pretty fun overall, but the slower parts of any match really start to wear thin when both you and your opponent are moving each and every one of your pieces in a single turn.
It's time to duel against shadows and darkness!
Merrick, in this battle I will defeat the evil that is feasting on your soul.
You'll pay, Pharaoh! I'll destroy your 5 senses! Until all you can feel is the doom in your heart!
You're the one who's going back into the shadows, Merrick!
Booting up the game though, you're first tasked with creating a king piece that you'll be using throughout the entire tournament. It can't actually attack, but the attribute of your king piece can affect the power of the monsters that you summon later on in battles. This does, however, bring up another gripe that I actually have. What the heck does any of this mean? Now, my completely real physical copy of the game that I totally own and is in no way being run on an emulator didn't actually come with an instruction booklet. So if this is your first time playing, or if you're like me and it's your first time playing in 20 years, you'll probably be pretty lost when the screen just ominously tells you you must assign all the points. Oh, okay, shoot. Well, obviously I want to pump up the MP, right? Like, gotta get some of that in there. get AP, yep, get AP, put that up there too. And you really don't want to neglect your PP, right? Fellas? Unfortunately, this is a recurring theme for a couple of mechanics here in Colosseum. The game does explain basics to you, like how to summon a monster or how to attack, but when you're looking at the stat screen for one of your pieces, you'll probably be scratching your head at what a bunch of these symbols and numbers represent. The good news is, though, if you've played other video games before, you might have a vague idea of what these stats might mean. You'd also be wrong, because MP does not in fact have anything to do with your ability to use spells, and is instead just literally the amount of money you start the game with. MP stands for Monster Points, and it's what you'll be using to buy new monsters from the store as the game progresses. Meanwhile, AP stands for Action Points, and it's arguably the most important stat here. You'll need to spend AP to summon your monsters from their capsules, to move them around the field, and to use their special abilities. And finally, PP is your Power Points, and it's just your king piece's HP. Number hits 0, you lose, simple. Now once you're done fumbling around to make your king piece, you get thrust right into the thick of things, as you immediately have to purchase some starting monsters for your collection before jumping into your first match with Joey. Whenever you pick an opponent to fight in this game, you get a brief little bit of dialogue between them and Yugi before the match actually starts. Also, is it just me, or do the character portraits feel a little off here? Like, I don't really know how to explain it, but it feels like somebody just took them into Photoshop and went, I don't know, maybe the cameraman is just really short or something, but I digress. Each of your opponents, though, will have a different unique stage that you duel them on, and this is an aspect of capsule monsters that I really like, the stages. As you can probably guess, most opponents have monsters that'll get powered up by the stage you fight them on, so Weevil, for example, fights you in the forest and his bug-heavy wood pieces are right at home. It's the stages themselves, though, that I like. When you first get to one, you get this little flyby cinematic that highlights some of the key features of the board, and oftentimes that flyby is going to be a hint as to what the gimmick of that stage might be. In Joey's case, it shows the lion head fountain for a bit, and sure enough, later on in the match, that fountainhead springs to life and floods the field with water. Now, while some can be more impactful than others, each stage does have its own little gimmick. Teia's stage, for example, is a cute little diorama of a shopping street on Christmas Eve. It's got a waving mechanical Santa, and when the clock strikes midnight, it starts snowing while a chorus of carolers sings an angelic song to the player. It's all very cute and very pretty, and since Christmas is a romantic occasion in Japan, this field actually symbolizes Teia taking Yugi out on a date.
Yeah, Yugi, I know you're strong, but I didn't know you were this strong.
And then there's Merrick, whose stage does this. Now, the stage gimmicks themselves are another aspect of capsule monsters that are really interesting to me. In the actual game, we have gimmicks that do two things, either change your stats or cause you damage. One of the stages is filled with floating cubes that each have a different element on them, so you want to put matching monsters on the right spaces for a power boost. Another stage is filled with poison gas that'll damage anything other than wood monsters that hang out near it. Those are all fine, don't get me wrong, but I'm the kind of guy that loves unhinged hijinks in Smash Bros. With items and hazards turned on to maximum, so I'd love to see more chaotic stages. Like maybe have some conveyor belts that can move monsters around for free, or putting gimmicks that'll only trigger if the right type of monster is used nearby, like a cannon that you have to light with a fire type. Not every stage has to have some big thing to it, and a lot of stages in the base game are honestly pretty solid on their own. I just think it'd be cool if the option was there. And the idea of a new game appearing on a modern console with all the bells and whistles, a man can dream, okay? Is just, man, I want that to happen so bad. Regardless, when a battle is finished, you get a bit of MP from your opponent, as well as a choice of some of their monsters to add to your roster. I should mention, though, that you only get to snag a monster if you destroyed it during the match, so if you made a beeline for your opponent's king piece, you probably won't have much in the way of rewards. Not only that, but all of your surviving monsters get a nice chunk of experience when the battle's over, and you'll want to level up your pieces as soon as you can so they don't get wiped out later down the line by your opponent just sneezing on them. When you're buying your first batch of monsters from your cheap grandpa that doesn't just give them to you for free for some reason, you'll probably notice right away that one of the Exodia pieces is buried in that list. First of all, grab that right now. Second of all, I'm sure anyone familiar with Yu-Gi-Oh! Recognizes this thing immediately, and probably already realizes what's coming next. For those of you that might not be familiar though, here's a quick rundown. In the game of Yu-Gi-Oh!, Exodia is one of the most iconic monsters of all time. In the actual card game, if you're able to gather all 5 of his pieces into your hand, that being his head, legs, and arms, you're instantly declared the winner of the duel. Pretty much every fan out there remembers when it was used in the very first episode of the anime, and it's remained an absolute staple of Yu-Gi-Oh's culture ever since. So of course, when you see that leg sitting there seductively in the shop like that, you probably realize right away that you have to gather the remaining pieces. You'll find the other Exodia parts scattered about the game, but once you do finally get them all together, you might be like me and just slap them all down together on the board with the misguided idea that you'll instantly win when you summon them.
But they were all of them deceived, for another ring was made.
See, Capsule Monster Coliseum also includes another facet that the original card game has: fusion. Yep, certain monsters in the game can be fused together to form stronger counterparts, which is something that can only happen if the right pieces are standing next to each other on the field. And if you're someone that grew up with Yu-Gi-Oh!, you'd probably be able to guess a bunch of them outright. 3 Blue Eyes White Dragons will give you Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon, and Time Wizard and Baby Dragon will combine to make Thousand Dragon. So for Exodia, once you get all 5 of his limbs lined up, you can fuse them together to form a single, very powerful piece. Why isn't it doing anything? Yeah, because of course it isn't that simple. You also need to raise your fusion monsters up to the required level beforehand, so good luck keeping Baby Dragon alive. Now, while simply having it doesn't win you the duel like it does in the card game, the combined Exodia piece is still one of the strongest options you can get in a single playthrough. Plus, it just feels great to finally get to throw it at somebody after all the effort you went to put it together. The other aspect of monsters that's good to know is evolution, which thankfully only require a single monster this time around. With evolution, if a monster is both the right level and at the right amount of attack power, you can spend its turn to evolve it, which will then change into a different, more powerful form. The list of monsters that evolves, though, is sadly pretty small, which is something else that could really be improved on in a modern title. Unlike with Fusion, though, even if you're super familiar with Yugioh, you probably won't ever even realize this is the thing you can do in the first place. And really, I only found out about all this by accident when I was looking at the game's Wikipedia page to see what level Time Wizard gets his ability. Spoiler, he doesn't. But if you ever somehow stumble upon the chance to evolve something, absolutely take it, since from that duel on you'll be able to use the newer form of the monster straight out the gate. Otherwise, that's about it for Coliseum. The only remaining thing of note to mention is that you get a rare monster when you beat the game, which will then carry over with the rest of your collection on any subsequent playthroughs. The downside, though, is that nothing new gets unlocked when you do decide to do another run, so once you've beaten it, the only real incentive to play again is if you're trying to go for a full 100% completion. To be clear, I didn't do that, but I still really enjoyed myself with this one anyway. I'm a huge sucker for this era of Yu-Gi-Oh!, and even though Capsule Monsters didn't wind up sticking around, I'm still glad that Konami at least tried to branch things out in a different direction. And I really do mean it too when I say that there's some serious untapped potential here. Moving the game to computers took away the tedium of having to track down each and every stat change on paper, and it also let the developers try out a whole bunch of interesting features that just wouldn't be possible on a board game. In my heart of hearts, I know that we'll never get any new official Konami support for this franchise, but with how crazy fan creations have been in the last decade for literally anything ever, I wouldn't be surprised to see mods for the game that completely overhaul everything from the ground up. Even if that doesn't come to pass though, Capsule Monster Coliseum is still worth checking out. It's a neat little time capsule into a bygone era of Yu-Gi-Oh!, and it has a super interesting premise that I've never seen explored like this since. Sure, it has its hang-ups, but it's still a great game that you can't really experience anywhere else. And if you're anything like me, at the end of your playthrough, you'll probably just be sitting there wishing that there was more you could possibly— Second of all, I'm sure that anybody familiar with Yu-Gi-Oh! Recognizes this immediately, as well as probably realizing right away what's— Another cool feature that these older Yu-Gi-Oh! Games used to always have was the 3D battle animations. They are really neat. On said island, you'll be going up against some of the mainstays from both Duelist Kingdom and Battle City. Joey, Kaiba, Bakurik. You would hide your pieces from your opponent in these little dive bell looking capsules and slowly summon them to the board when the game went blah blah blah.
I do not say blah blah blah.
To tell you the truth, there's really not a lot going on with the story here. What on earth was that noise my throat just made? On said island, you'll be going up against some of the mainstays from both Duelist Kingdom and Battle City. Joey, Bakura, Kaiba, Merrick, even Tristan and Taya throw their hands in the hat this ring. Another cool thing that a lot of these early Yu-Gi-Oh! Games used to have was the battle animations. Whenever you fight something, you have the option of seeing the two monsters in 3D just going at it with each other. Let me rephrase that, that's a bad way of saying that, okay.